Hello everybody, my name is Joshua and I'd like to welcome you back to another episode of Coffee, Cats, and King, where we will discuss books both new and old. I'll share with you pictures of my cats, will make you wish they were your cats, and I'll drink enough coffee for me and everybody watching. Different setup here today. I'm just trying something. I don't know if it's going to work or not, but decided to come on here today with my December wrap-up. Obviously still trying to catch up and doing a terrific job of it so far. December, I read 22 books, and it was a good way to close out the year. I ended the year, I think, close to 230 books, maybe at 230 books, because there were a few that Goodreads didn't have. So it was a pretty phenomenal year. I'm hoping that maybe that number will be less this year, and I will focus more on, more on writing rather than reading, although so far that doesn't seem to be the case, but there's still time. It's just now April, so we'll see what happens. But like I said, 22 books in December. Well, let's just get into it. So first book was Cleveland Amory's The Cat Who Came for Christmas. This ended up being a 4.5 star read for me. It was a delight. I am very lucky in that I found this copy at Goodwill, and it was signed by the man himself. I am not Kathy, but still happy to have his signature and a little message from him. The year before I was born, in fact. It should go without saying, but it is an excellent book for those who own cats. It's basically the true story of this man who inadvertently ends up with a cat right before Christmas, and he's never owned one before, doesn't know what the heck he's doing, and so he's going through all those firsts that we as cat owners go through when you are first learning about what it's like to live with a cat. 4.5 stars because there were a few sections where he kind of got bogged down in his own histories of cats, maybe, that weren't quite as exciting as what was going on in the present with his cat. But overall, excellent read for cat lovers, and I hope to pick up the others that he wrote about him and his cat. Now, the second book was a big surprise. This was M.J. Ang with The House in the Snow. And this is just one of those Apple paperbacks that, they're a dime a dozen from Scholastic back in the day. This one really surprised me, though. This was 5 stars, and this is about a boy who is going through the woods, and he meets another boy that has escaped this house that the locals say is haunted. You see lights there sometimes, hear noises, and no one really goes there. Well, this little boy has escaped that house, and he's telling the other one, look, you don't want to go there. There are all these invisible robbers and kidnappers. They have a bunch of other little boys that are kidnapped there, and you just don't want to go there. I barely made it out. And our main character decides that it is up to him to investigate this further. Ended up being a really impressive read. I did not expect to enjoy it as much as I did. And just a very fun little cat and mouse between this boy and these invisible robbers. And yes, they are in fact invisible, which you'll learn more about that in the story. But this is one that I would suggest picking up for those who still, as adults, enjoy these Scholastic books. This is definitely one worth having and one worth keeping. I fully intend to keep this in my collection and read it again around the winter time every year. Great book. 5 stars. The next was an audiobook sent to me by the author. This is Timothy Bryan's By Their Cold Fingers. And this was a 3.5 star for me. This is a story that takes place back a long time ago and involves sort of Norse mythology. It takes place over there. and is about this tribe that is attacked by this unknown creature. People start dying, and they don't know what it is. They don't know where it came from, and on top of that, they're already struggling to survive. It's been a rough winter. They lost a lot of crops, a lot of livestock, and they really don't know what they're going to do. Like I said, this was sent to me by the author, for which I very much appreciate, and I apologize, Mr. Brian, for just now getting the review out there. This is a really enjoyable one if you like historical horror in particular. This is still a creature feature of sorts, but more of an interesting take in that, again, you don't get a lot from the Norse side. There were some issues in the writing, some things that I think will probably be polished as Mr. Brian continues his writing career, but overall 3.5 stars. Next was Snowball by Gregory Bastianelli. I had high hopes going into this one. A bunch of people get trapped in the snow in a sort of whiteout situation on the highway. They all realize they share little connections. As soon as it is revealed what's going on, things really tanked from there. The first portion was decent, but like I said, once you get to that part where you start to figure out what's going on, it's fairly early into the book, unfortunately, things go downhill. So 1.5 stars, really not worth picking up. Next was We Bleed Red and Green by Jeff Carter. Now previously, back in October, I read his other collection that is, of course, Halloween themed, and really enjoyed it. So I knew I was going to pick this up around Christmas time. Again, very much enjoyed it. Gave it a 4-star at the end of the day. Not as good as his Halloween collection, but still very much enjoyable. You're mostly getting horror here on the Christmas side, which of course most of those that are watching this video will enjoy. And just a very quick, simple collection. I believe this one was available on Kindle Unlimited as well, so you may not even have to pay for it to pick it up, and you can pretty much finish it within a day. Next up was A Christmas Treasury of Yuletide Stories and Poems. I got this one at Goodwill a while back. Won't spend a ton of time on it. This was 3 stars. Very middle of the road as far as anthologies go. This is mostly older stuff, but it's a weird mix because you get you get some classic Gothic tales in there. You get some lighthearted stuff from like Laura Ingalls Wilder, which is great, and then you have poetry. Then you have some Bible stories, and it's a weird mix. Some of it worked really well, other parts were just very boring. Like I said, overall, probably 2.5, 3 stars. It's decent, but I wouldn't go out of my way to pick it up again. And this one in particular, because I'm trying to make room on my bookshelves, is probably going in my on-haul pile. Next up is Mary Stuart Atwell with Wild Girls. This was one that I picked up on a whim. Didn't really know anything about it. I just grabbed it when I was at Goodwill, and it was cool because it ended up being signed. But basically, this is about a girl that lives in a little town, goes to a special girls' academy. And what's interesting about this town is that they have this weird thing where it seems to be that at random, certain girls just kind of go wild, if you will. They commit crazy crimes that are just totally out of character. They kind of lose their minds. And a lot of it seems almost supernatural in the way that it occurs. And so this girl is, she's just trying to make her way through school, preparing for college, preparing for life as an adult, while simultaneously very much being concerned that she is going to be one of these wild girls, because her own sister was one. And so, of course, in her mind, she's going to follow. I didn't know what to expect going into this one, but I actually very much enjoyed it. It was 4 stars. Sometimes the back and forth drama detracts away too much from the story. I wanted to know more about really what was going on, as opposed to, you know, what her thoughts were on this guy's pecs that day, you know. But that's just part of it when you're reading this kind of book. But overall, 4 stars. It was really enjoyable, and I liked the I guess you can sort of think of it in the same realm as the movie Ginger Snaps, where this is a very obvious allegory on what young women go through as their bodies are changing, as they are maturing, and just how frightening it can be for them. So 4 stars. Very happy to have this, very happy to have it signed, and it will be staying on my bookshelves. Time for another middle-of-the-road anthology. This was Winds of Winter, edited by Nola Barr. This one, sort of similar to the Christmas Treasury, in that there's almost a very strange mix here, where you get science fiction, you get romance, you get fantasy. I was excited about that idea going into it, but I quickly realized that it didn't work as well as I thought it would. Maybe it has something to do with the way the book was formatted, in that you can go from a romance right into a science fiction, a regular drama into a horror. So maybe the way that the book was paced was not correct. But 3 stars, it was okay. There's definitely better out there, though. And for one of those books that is much, much better, this was a reread for me, actually. This is The 12 Frights of Christmas. And this also has some horror, some science fiction, some fantasy-esque. But I'm just going to say 5 stars. It was 5 stars the first time I read it, 5 stars the second time I read it. It's somewhat difficult sometimes to find a copy, but if you're looking around on eBay, it shouldn't be that hard. And this is one, I don't want to spoil any of the stories inside, but it is well worth picking up. You have a lot of the masters of the field, and some people that you probably don't know the names of that you should. Next was Best of Indie Horror Christmas Edition. This ended up being 4.5 stars, and again, just really impressed me. I read, obviously, a lot of anthologies in December, but this was another standout. It was not as good as The 12 Frights of Christmas, but considering that this is indie horror as opposed to, you know, something from Osmov, very impressed. There were some editing issues here and there, as you see occasionally with these things, but this was another one that I believe was on Kindle Unlimited, so again, you don't even have to pay for it, and there's some really stellar horror in there. I did listen to Bentley Little's The Resort, and I personally am a fan of Bentley Little. A lot of people do not like him, a lot of people love him, and Bentley Little for me tends to go this way. He starts with an awesome concept, something very satirical, you know it's going to be a lot of fun. Things get silly and ridiculous, and you have a blast with it, and then the ending comes and he lets you down. And that's sort of what happens here with The Resort. So in typical fashion, he starts with a good concept, in that these folks find a killer deal for a vacation resort. Of course, we all know to be careful of this sort of thing. This family has the same sort of apprehension, but they go anyway. And, well, if you've read a Bentley Little, you should kind of know what to expect from here. It's kind of like the way Richard Lehman writes, in that you know exactly what to expect. It's probably not going to blow you away. There's probably going to be a lot of blood, a lot of sex, a lot of disgusting stuff, and if nothing else, he is reliable for an enjoyable time, depending on what your definition of enjoyable may be. So 3 stars. It was not one of his better ones in my opinion, but it was still fun. Still a fun time. Time for a book that I have heard a lot about through the years. Finally got to read. This is Anne Rivers Siddons with The House Next Door. 5 stars. All the way, 5 stars. It's an emotional book in that a lot of things are going to make you angry. Not trying to spoil anything here, but it's one of those books where there are no happy endings. So if you're trying to avoid that sort of book, then probably don't read The House Next Door, because there's not much happiness to go around here. This is a really cool sort of haunted house story, if you will. Unique in that the main characters don't live in the house where all these disruptions and evil occurrences are happening. They live beside it, as the title would suggest. And the main characters, for me, at first I really didn't like them. It took me some time to come to appreciate them to a degree. I still never fully liked them. There were still sticking points for me there, but I think it's meant to be that way. But like I said, this is a book that I've heard a lot about, but I've heard a lot of good things about it, but I haven't heard much about the story itself. So I didn't know a whole lot going in, other than the very basic premise, and I'm kind of glad I did. Like I said, this is 5 stars. It was a book that I will read again in the future, but one that I'm going to need a while before I read it again, because it just really bums you out. So, what also bummed me out was the collection Sleigh Bells Ring. I'll put a picture up over here, and it bummed me out because of that really cool cover there. Now, I don't know, maybe at this point I just read so much Christmas horror anthology subgenre, but this one just really didn't do it for me. It was 2.5 stars. There were some definite editing issues here, and it just felt like a lot of the same. So avoid this one, pick up some of the others that I mentioned that were a lot better, and we'll move on to the next one. Next was Body in the Library by Agatha Christie. I should have had the copy, but it's Paige's copy, so it's over there somewhere on our bookshelf, and I'm too lazy to find it. So I'll put a picture up here. This was 3.5, 4 stars from me. This is the first Miss Marple book I have read personally, and she is just a little old lady who knows a lot more than people think she knows, and is eerily good at solving crimes. Despite the fact that she really doesn't want to. So, kind of humorous. She is not my favorite of the Christie characters, but I will certainly read the other books involving her in the future. And like I said, 3.5, 4 stars. Not my favorite from Christie, but still well worth a read. Another big surprise for me was Sinclair Lewis with Babbitt. And this is about a man who is successful in all the ways that society says we are meant to be successful, but as it says, in reality, he is a lonely middle-aged man who doesn't understand his family, has an unsuccessful fling in an affair, voices sympathy for some striking workers, and is almost financially ruined by his actions, who finds his only safety lies deep in the fold of those who play it safe. This was a very, very humorous book for me, but it's a very dry humor for the most part, and very much gets into the political side of things. This is a very old book, so it is not going to be for most people. I don't know who to suggest this to, because most of the people that follow this channel are following it for things like horror, not for things like Babbitt. But 5 stars, and if you do want to know more about it, just ask me below and we'll talk in the comments. Next up, this was a Give Yourself Goosebumps, one of the harder ones to find. This is The Twisted Tale of Tiki Island, and this was very middle of the road for a Goosebumps book as well. This was 3 stars. if you've read these from him before, you know they get silly, they get ridiculous, but they can be a blast. This was not one of my favorites, but it was enjoyable. Enjoyable enough for me to keep it around, maybe read in the future. Maybe not, I don't know. But 3 stars. There were some fun endings in here, but there were also just a lot of ridiculous moments as well. And like I said, certainly there is much better in the Give Yourself Goosebumps category. Next up, this is another one that was sent to me by the author, and he very graciously signed it to me. This is Mike Bogue's Atomic Drive-In, with this really cool cover that I know certain people will appreciate. It came from the page. Yeah, so this is a collection of short stories with the longer title being Atomic Drive-In, all involving giant movie monsters, kaiju, but in some very interesting ways. This ended up being a 4.5 star for me. So this is definitely one of those where if you dig the cover, you're going to dig the stories inside. You know who you are if this is your kind of book. If you think this is your kind of book, it's your kind of book. Pick it up for some kaiju action. It's a lot of fun. Unfortunately, I cannot say the same for the next book. This is R.L. Stine's Dangerous Girls. This is vampires. This is teens at their worst. And this is some really bad writing from Stine. There are a couple of twists in here that are really fun. And there are some good sections of the book, but overall the writing is just really poor. I gave it 2.5 stars, and I will be unhauling that book. A book that I'm very glad I did not purchase was John Minster's Undertaker's Daughter. I'm not going to say a lot about this. This was 1 star. I'm going to leave it at this. There is a lot of sexual assault in this book, and it is not handled in a good way whatsoever, and I'm just going to leave it at that. 1 star. Don't read it. Another book that I really can't recommend is Herman Koch with The Dinner. And at the end of this book, I felt kind of sick to my stomach. This is basically about 2 couples that meet up at a dinner. And that very slowly you learn this is more a meeting about their sons who have done something really awful, and they're trying to figure out how to handle it. And this sort of takes that, we'll do anything for family idea that I hate so much, and rolls with it. And basically allows everybody who is an awful, horrible person to get away with everything scot-free and just to continue to do awful, horrible things. Like I said, it's going to make you feel kind of sick to your stomach. More than that, though, I don't feel that it was very well written. Had it been well written, it still could have been a 5 star. That made me sick to my stomach. But this was not handled in a good way. Much in the way that Undertaker's Daughter did not handle sexual assault in a good way. Which sounds weird to say, but you know what I'm trying to say. A 1 star, don't read it, don't waste your time. Last mediocre read of the year, as it turned out, was Spider Robinson with Mind Killer. This one had an interesting premise, and it's unfortunate too because I had the other books in this series from a collection of Spider Robinson books that I got off of eBay. But I'll say it's 2.5 stars. I'm not going to talk a lot about it because this video is long enough, and it's not a book that I'm going to keep. It's another one that's being unhauled. And let's move on to the last book that I read in the year of 2022 that ended up being a 5-star read and a very enjoyable one to end off on. This is Patrick Whalen with Out of the Night. Now, this book, if you enjoy classic horror setups, this is one for you. This is basically about this mortuary run by a couple of really creepy twins. Basically, people start dying in the town. Some people think that the twins are involved at this mortuary, or that it has something to do with the cemetery around the mortuary. There are ancient evil creatures. There are, creepy satanic things going on. There's action, and this is a great book. It's so much fun. Some awesome kills in this book, and a killer cover to go along with it. 5 stars, super fun. If you can find a copy on eBay or something, then pick it up for yourselves. And I'm going to end off there. I know I started to kind of rush at the end, but this is a really long video as it is. I'm hoping to get some more out to you soon. I'm just having such a hard time keeping up, guys, and I keep going back and forth on whether I should keep doing this and, maybe letting you down by just giving you a video every couple of weeks, because I want to do better. I'm just struggling with it. Should Coffee, Cats, and King continue, or is it not worth it to you folks for, what you're getting at the present? Give me your honest opinions below, but that's where we're at. This is the December wrap-up. Next will be January, and maybe I'll be able to start catching up at some point. I don't know, but there you go. That's it. I hope you enjoyed this video, got something out of it, though I don't know what it may be. And we're going to wrap it up. Have a great week. Stay safe. Drink great coffee. Cheers.